Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another mildly interesting video. You know, I feel like every single isekai protagonist these days is just getting stronger. There's always just something extra that you have to add to these protagonists that earn these brand new powers from no skill or effort of their own, but just get it handed to them on a silver platter. I feel like that's the underlying question of all of these isekai animes behind the scenes. What if we tried even more power? And at long last, I think I have found the absolute pinnacle of it on this guy right here. Unfortunately. So this is what isekai hell looks like. When I made my episode on I got a cheat skill and became unrivaled in the real world too, which by the way is an absolute mouthful of a title, I thought that was the worst isekai anime that I have ever seen. That is until I discovered this show called Instant Death, and I'm not going to even try to bother saying the whole thing because that is just way too long. Now, I wouldn't say that this is the worst isekai anime that I have seen, that it overtakes cheat skill, because cheat skill tries to take itself seriously, whereas this one, it doesn't at least try to take itself seriously. But it's still definitely down there as the second worst isekai anime I have ever seen. I don't know, I might discover something else worse, who knows? My main problem with the show comes from the nature of our protagonist, Yogiri Takato. He is already so overpowered because his ability before he came into this other world is that he can literally kill anything with just his thought. I told you that this was the pinnacle of what if we tried even more power. The result is that in every single battle that our protagonist gets into, pretty much has no stakes or drama or emotion or anything carried into it. Because we know that no matter how much the show tries to amp up a new bad guy, whether it's an evil classmate or a literal demigod or dragons or all that other kind of stuff, we know that dealing with those conflicts is going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. All he has to do is just say the word die or even just think it, and then the problem is solved, and then we can just move straight on from that. Because we already know the outcome of every single battle, it gets boring to watch because it quickly becomes formulaic. We already know that there's going to be a bad guy, then they either get killed or they get converted to the good side, and then we move on because that's what every isekai anime does. But there's actually another show that has this similar problem, but not only did they manage to avoid this problem entirely, it actually managed to become one of the most popular animes of all time, that being One Punch Man. Now yes, there is a difference. That is a superhero anime and this one is an isekai anime that we're talking about, Instant Death. So the question is, how does One Punch Man succeed where Instant Death pretty much fails and flops? Well, the answer is that One Punch Man focuses on being a parody of the superhero genre and also focusing on how boring and lonely it can be being the strongest man alive to the point in every single battle that you do, because whether you're dealing with a meteorite or gigantic Godzilla-esque monster or something, I don't really know. I haven't seen One Punch Man. I haven't seen a single episode of it. I'm very sorry. We know that dealing with these conflicts is going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience, and the hero also knows. That's why from the looks of it, they seem to focus on how boring and lonely it gets being at the very top of that. That is another source of entertainment that the viewer can get from watching this anime. It doesn't just come from the battles, it comes from this character development. Now, Instant Death also has a parody element to it and also some character development. So, do they actually do a good job at this? Well, if I had to rate their execution on it, it would probably yeah, they failed both of those things. Let's start with the parody aspect, because the way that it works is that it's trying to point out various isekai tropes and pointing out how ridiculous they are. I don't know if it's just me, but it's just not funny at all. It's so ridiculous and boring because once again, pretty much every conflict ends in the same way. It's not like they're subverting tropes to make it more interesting or anything. The parody aspect is just a huge miss for me. All they just do is that, oh hey, that's a pretty funny thing, and then they just move on straight from that. They don't do anything with that subversion. It just quickly becomes just like a 5-second joke before they move on to another 5-second joke, and then another 5-second joke, and then but Chaz, you might say, how did you know my name? You need to be well acquainted with the isekai genre to be able to understand the show's humor. To which I say two things. One, if isekai is trashy like this in general, then I don't think I want to get acquainted with the genre. I mean, like, even the slime anime betrayed me, but we'll talk about that for another day. Two, I don't think I need to be acquainted with the isekai genre to understand the joke of our female lead wearing too little clothing and calling it out, or a wizard with huge tracts of land. Yes, I watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which actually has good humor. Keeping her one and said huge tracts of land and calling that out, or seeing an overpowered arrogant douchebag try to kill someone because of the world's power system before killing him instantaneously and then calling it out, and at this point I think you get the idea. I very much doubt that the show would still be funny even if I was already well versed in isekai anime, so I don't think I could call it funny. And it's not like there's a whole variety of jokes in here or anything to make it funny. It's just the same thing every time, we're just calling out something funny and then moving straight on from it. But what about the character side? I mean, we're talking about a whole bunch of school people trapped in this brand new world, with one of them being someone who literally decides what death is. well, they don't really explore too much into that. They don't really explore what it means to be someone that can literally kill anything with just a thought in a world where power hierarchies are everything. Yes, they do show our protagonists killing the most overpowered beings in this world one by one, but it's not like it actually really contributes that much to the story, or if it does, then they really poorly communicate it. If we spend more time on the people that our protagonist eventually kills, it can actually make for some good television, because we've already established the sheer amount of power our protagonist holds, which makes every battle have no tension, which means no entertainment. We could possibly mine that entertainment from looking at the victims that are eventually going to be killed by Yoguri later on in the episode or the show, so we can feel more bad for him, and we start thinking, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Yes, they are doing some pretty good things, but do they deserve this? Or is he in the right? That could be some good entertainment in my opinion. Now, there is one genuinely good aspect in the series that focuses on one character that only makes me even more angry. The relationship between our protagonist Yoguri and Asaka. Throughout the show, we get flashbacks of Yoguri living in this underground base and being supervised by this woman named Asaka, who was originally an elementary school teacher before she got abducted into basically doing this gig. And it's super interesting to see this relationship between her and our protagonist. It's genuinely something good that I haven't really seen before. Yes, we have seen shows where regular humans deal with special children like The Last of Us and The Creator, and we've definitely seen things where humans deal with deadly beings like Cloverfield or Godzilla. But I don't think I've ever seen something where a regular elementary school teacher is suddenly tasked with dealing a kid locked away from humanity who can literally decide what death is and what exists and doesn't exist. It's a familiar concept, cranked to the extreme, and there's an inherent tension in those scenes because we follow Asaka's perspective, and her fate is pretty much left open-ended in the anime. And because of that open-ended nature, I can start thinking about Asaka's fate in the anime. Is she already dead, or is she still alive? What is her exact role in all of this? We know that she raised Yoguri to become the person that he is right now, but we still don't know how the relationship between the two eventually went towards. Did it deteriorate, or did it get stronger, or was she just neutral the whole way? That's plenty of questions to entertain my brain. And the relationship between the two is actually pretty decent. I really get the feeling of her trying to pretend that this is a normal mother-son relationship, despite the fact that the son literally decides what death is. And it's really heartwarming for Asaka to treat this literal monster not as a monster, but just as a regular kid who just happens to have something special about him, and we just gotta work around that. And the reason that this whole thing makes me even more angry is because all of this is treated as mandatory flashbacks. This whole thing is literally sidelined so that we can get more unfunny isekai parody moments. She's not even shown to actually influence his decisions until the very end, where we see how she told Yoguri to live his life as he wanted because he is literally above other people. But that doesn't really recontextualize anything. At the end of the day, he is still just a passive hero until some conflict comes in his way, he thinks the word die, and then they move on straight to the next objective. It's not really entertaining in the grand scope of things. They're only entertaining as their own separate scenes, which sucks because I think this is the one quirk that I don't think other animes like this have. I mean, how many other shows do you have a person that's literally acquainted with dealing with kids having to deal with a kid who happens to be a literal eldritch abomination that can kill anything with a single thought? That's something really unique, and I really wish that they delved more into this. I really hope that they still do in season 2. Yes, I'm gonna actually tune into this crap. What am I even saying? And there's also a whole bunch of other stuff that's wrong with this anime. All the characters, not just Yoguri, all of the main characters that we see are passive heroes. They don't really do anything out of their own volition. They only attack when someone else attacks. And pretty much all of those attackers are all bad guys. And those are all bad guys just because they're bad guys. There's no explanation for why they act the way they do. They're just bad guys so that the hero can just beat them up with absolutely no remorse, no moral implications whatsoever, no entertainment from those fights at all. It's not like there's a moral dilemma or anything that we're fighting for. It's not like we see the other bad guys just panicking at the sheer power that our protagonist has. There is almost no entertainment to be had on this other than just watching on how bad, and hilariously bad actually, how hilariously bad this show can get. And I feel like at this point, we have reached Hollywood or anime hell or something, because I have no idea how this possibly got worse, wasting away all of the good stuff that they had just to focus on the unfunny and bad, poorly executed aspects of the show. They had something good, and then they sidelined it so that they could focus on all of this unfunny parody isekai stuff, drawn out by battles that have absolutely no stakes or emotion or drama whatsoever. No entertainment to come from those action scenes from an action isekai. We must have reached rock bottom at this point. We should have just at least hit anime hell or something. Wait, actually, have we reached that? Wait, give me this. Well, hello, Purgatory.